Good afternoon. Welcome. We are here today for our land use hearing for the Board of County Commissioners of Larimer County. We are here for a land use hearing on February 9th, 2026. I call this meeting to order, and we're going to start with the Pledge of Allegiance. Would you please stand and join me for the pledge? Thank you all for joining me for the Pledge of Allegiance. Again, welcome you. I am Larimer County Commissioner Joy Shad McNally, Chair of the Board of County Commissioners. Today, joining me on the dais are Commissioner Kristen Stevens and Commissioner Kafalis, and we are here along with staff that are helping us today. First, we have Diane Cheney, who is behind us from the clerk recorder's office. She's the clerk to the board today. We also are joined by our county attorney, Christine Luckinson. Thank you for being here, Christine. And I'm going to turn this also over to our community development and planning director, actually our planning manager, Jenny Oxmaker, who will continue by introducing the rest of the staff that are here and then also helping us talk through the process for the run of order of the meeting today. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Jenny Axmaker, our planning manager. I'm joined at the dais by Casty Fior, our principal planner. We have Jared Say, another planner. We have Ryan Oswendell from our planning admin support. And across the way, we have planner JC McNulty, and we have our environmental planner Scott Benton, as well as Leah Schneider from the health department. So with that, I would respectfully request that all members of the audience silence their electronic devices. If you'd like a copy of the agenda and hearing procedure instructions, you can grab one by the door in the wooden holder, or if you're joining us online, you can find those at larimer.gov/BOCC/commissioners-meetings. Please wait to speak until you're recognized by the chair. Please maintain civility, refraining from audience applause, comments, or disruptions, whether positive or negative. Please make all comments to the Board of County Commissioners from the podium. We do have a portable microphone available if needed. Please state your name at the beginning of your comments, and please provide the spelling of your name if it's unique. Please speak directly into the microphone so that remote participants may hear you. The microphone on the podium can be repositioned to best capture your testimony. Questions may be asked during your testimony, but will not be answered until public comment is closed and the rebuttal period has begun. Upon request, we have assisted listening devices for the hearing impaired. For those on Zoom, attendees will be muted until they are recognized by the chair. If an online attendee wishes to speak or request a consent item to be removed, please use the raise your hand function on the Zoom control bar or *9 on your phone. Thank you.
Thank you, Jenny, and thank you for all of that. First, we have some consent agenda items that are on the list. So I'm going to list those items on the agenda. And for the public's knowledge, consent agenda items are land use proposals where the applicant and planning development services team are in agreement with the details of the proposal and recommendations. And furthermore, consent items are presented when there is no known opposition and they are approved collectively without a full hearing. A consent agenda item can be pulled from the agenda by one of the commissioners on the Board of County Commissioners or a member of the public. And I will, I'm going to read through those items with a few details, and all these are listed in the agenda online and also in the packets here and the items that we have in front of us. So today we have, I believe we have, I just want to make sure we have two items and then we have a public discussion. But for the items that are on the consent agenda today, we have the first one, which is the Crown over amended plat file number 25-LAND 4522, which is an amended plat to extend the building envelope of Lot 5 of the Ludwig Farm RLUP to include existing deck and retaining wall and provide additional space for future projects. And then we have item number 2 is the Owl Canyon Pano AI appeal, file number 25-GNL and RL 0582. And then we also will have a public discussion item, which we have two of those. One of those is which will be the Hearthfire, the 3653 Hearthfire Cell Tower Expansion and Appeal. And then we also have in front of us the item number 2, the expansion of the moratorium, a consideration of expansion of the moratorium of the data center facilities. So first I'll start with the consent items, the two items that they're on a consent. Do any of my colleagues wish to pull any of those items from the consent agenda? All right, none of the commissioners wish to, so we'll now ask any members of the public who might want to have one of those items pulled from the consent agenda. They will be then considered as a full hearing, but we'll approve the rest of consent of the agenda without that item. So ask any member of the public, anyone wish to pull any of those items off the consent agenda that I just listed. Ryan, can we please check online, please?
If any members of the public online would like to remove one of the two consent agenda items, please use the raise your hand function now. We do have one hand raised. Elizabeth Batiste, please let us know which case you would like to have a discussion on.
Yes, sorry. I know that a few things were mentioned, but the data center was not on the consent agenda, correct?
I can answer that. Yes, it is not on the consent agenda. It will be heard. I listed the consent agendas and also listed the discussion items that was listed as a discussion item. So that item is not on the consent agenda. Does that change?
Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, any further discussion?
No other hands are raised.
All right, thank you. I will ask Commissioner Stevens then to please make the motion to approve the consent agenda.
Yes, Madam Chair. I move to approve the items on the consent agenda subject to the conditions in the staff reports and further move to authorize the chair to sign the findings and resolutions for these items.
Thank you for that, Commissioner Stevens. Any further discussion? No? Okay. So there's a motion on the table. All of those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Great. Okay. We're going to move on now to our discussion items. The first will be a presentation of the 3653, and all of those who in the audience who maybe had one of those items on consent agenda, you're welcome to leave at this time if you're not part of the discussion item. Just want to make sure you feel comfortable with that. So you don't have to sit here. You're welcome to. We'd love to have you stick around, but you're welcome to leave. So the first public hearing discussion item is number 1 of 3653 Hearthfire Cell Tower Expansion and Appeal. I will turn, Jenny, should I turn this over to you or to Jared Say? Jared, I'll turn it over to you. Jared, please take it away for your presentation. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you for giving me the time. I'll pull this up here for you. All right, so this is plan case 25 WCF 0193, the 3653 Hearthfire Cell Tower Expansion and Appeal. The parcel is approximately 18.04 acres. It's a parcel that sits within the Hearthfire subdivision. It is a part of Larimer County rather than annexed by the city of Fort Collins, which much of the remaining subdivision is. Is situated at the southeast corner of North County Road 11 and East Douglas Road. So the zoning district is open. A specific request title is that it's an administrative special approval to extend a 60-foot existing monopine tower, an additional 10-foot, resulting in then a structure of 70-foot. And there's also an additional appeal included within this case that contemplates whether we would allow a monopine facility to remain there or would be unconcealed as a result of, say, what would be a denial of that. Here is a conceptual site plan showing what is the current rendering on the left of the tower and what is the proposed on the right. We'll talk about this a little bit more moving forward. a little bit more detail showing relative to the existing oil and gas facility that's at the site, where the 45 by 45 lease area exists at the site. And this to the bottom right here is more of an inlay of what currently exists at the facility, less the landscaping. It is important to note that this application is being processed by the lessee of this specific easement, rather than by the overall site owner in the oil and gas facility that is in question and conversation there. Here's a depiction of some of the existing landscaping that is at the site within the approximate boundaries of that lease area and surrounding it. There is additional foliage that does exist further east to the site here, shown by a more crude approximation of an overlay of the plans and what the assessor's aerials show. There's wetland area that exists along the eastern side of the site. There is more landscaping in the form of cottonwood deciduous trees to the north that conceal more of the oil and gas facility, and another facility fence that exists along the southernmost perimeter that is not depicted within the landscaping plan here that conceals the oil and gas facility as well. That does have additional coniferous trees. Here is some of the proposed and existing landscape, the view shed of the landscape, moreover, showing what the tower currently looks like, and then on the right side representing what's anticipated, or I guess more so the bottom here. So this was provided to community members upon referral for noticing up to those within 500 foot of the subject parcel. At the time my report was written, 16 neighborhood comments were received and 5 from one individual. At least 6 more comments were received in the after the publishing of the report and the subsequent attachments that go along with it. Concerns about the tower mainly pertained to the visual appeal of the facility, with it being more of a flat top rather than a tapered one. Impact to the property values adjacent to the site, and the existing landscaping, among other concerns. Comments in favor of the proposed extension noted the current lack of cellular service in the area, to which they cited public safety concerns. The approved extension would also allow for further co-location of those cellular carriers at the site, namely in this case Verizon Wireless. It's also, I suppose, important to mention that there is currently Dish operating at the site and AT&T intending to co-locate, having an EFR or a lesser cellular case that's administrative approved recently. So there will be 2 there no matter what, and this is to allow then an extension that supposedly Verizon will then occupy. So looking at the review criteria, it is rather long. There are several different subsets of criteria that we have at play here. There's general review criteria, Article 9 standards for wireless communication facilities, general review criteria within our land use code that is different than the other general here, and then section for appeals. For the sake of time, I can go over them individually, or I will just continue on the presentation for right now, but we can go back to them at your leisure and as you please. There are 10 slides of them. So staff recommendation on this is we found that it met the the appeal criteria, as well as the administrative special review criteria and the general review criteria that was listed in the above slides. We have here the recommendations that the site is going to be developed consistently with the approval and plan, that it doesn't require a development agreement, in short. Findings and resolution shall be in servitude to the site, owner responsible for obtaining any building permitting fees, that if it's not commenced on, it'll expire within a certain period of time, among other listed conditions that are there. I also can go into more depth on if you'd like. And that would be my presentation. Motion slide is here, and I'm ready for any questions you might have.
Thank you for your presentation. Commissioners, do you, and thank you, Jared, I appreciate that. It's a unique but very detailed process, and I appreciate you covering all that. Do any of the commissioners have a question for staff at this time? I'll go with Commissioner Falls first, and then I'll turn to you, Commissioner Stevens.
Thank you. Thanks, Jared. Regarding the location of the current cell tower, the 60-foot monopine cell tower, it's located on land that is is it correct that Prospect Energy owns that land? And also, there's a reference in the packet to 3 oil wells, but I believe everything on that site is no longer operational, and it is meant to be reclaimed and cleaned up. Is that correct?
That is correct to my understanding. The status of the oil wells, I believe that they are right now decommissioned. I'm not sure whether completely plugged or abandoned, just based on the oil and gas facility itself, but they are not in operation. The site is to be reclaimed. That is still a subject of conversation and how and when it will be reclaimed. But Prospect Energy does not currently own the site. I believe it's a WGC Legacy Trust. I don't know the specifics behind that entity, but they're the ones that succeeded ownership of them.
If I may, a couple more questions. Thank you, by the way. Is it also correct that regarding the defunct oil and gas operations, that's a separate permitting process? In other words, the reclamation of that land and what needs to be done to plug those wells, as well as remove the equipment, that's a separate process.
That is correct. This is only pertaining to the 45 by 45 lease area and landscaping there and around and the extension of the facility contemplated. Everything else that would have to go on with the oil and gas facility would be handled separately and through whatever building or permitting processes would be necessary.
Great. If I may, Madam Chair, just 2 more questions for now. You're doing such a great job, Jared. Thank you. And that is based on public comment that we've received, written public comment, through the process in the past, and then more recent public comment. I think one of the concerns that's been expressed is that when the original cell tower was approved, then there is a great need for better more reliable and better cell service up there. But when that was approved a couple of years ago, at least some of the comments we heard is that cell service did not really improve. And therefore, what assurances do we have that if we are to approve this extension of the height of the cell tower by 10 feet, that will improve service and that will provide enough incentive to have co-location from different cell service providers?
So I believe this might be better directed to the applicant in exactly where, not to move it off into his camp, but to my understanding, Verizon Wireless is looking to co-locate at the facilities. Right now, AT&T is in the process using what is the current approval to set up what are cellular antennas and the associated terms for them.
No, I appreciate that, and I'll wrap this up in a moment. So I would appreciate hearing from the applicant what the intentions were when this was first approved. And, we typically, as part of our wireless communications facilities regulations, we encourage co-location. And I'd like to better, I don't know who that person is, but understand what happened or didn't happen regarding co-location and improving the public safety aspects of the cell service, et cetera. My final question is that, and I think we have more control over this. So another issue that folks have raised is about the landscaping and the vegetation. Mm-hmm. And it appears that when it was first approved, there were conditions of approval that said you had to plant a whole bunch of trees all around, and all of that. But apparently, a lot of those trees died. Therefore, what assurance do we have, and whose responsibility is it to make sure that is fixed and that doesn't happen again?
So we have had some comments in the past regarding this facility. I've actually toured it personally, to where we did identify that several of the landscaping plantings had perished. Considering the timing of when they had died and most recent intent for them to be reinstalled, right now in winter, it wouldn't be advantageous, to my understanding, from the applicant to put them in, but there is intent to replace them regardless of whether this is approved or not. I'm not sure the duration of which they have been gone. I'll let you go.
No, I appreciate that. It would be helpful once again to hear from the applicant the details of all of that. And I would think that we're getting close to the period where it's optimal to plant trees, mm-hmm. And I think we really need to address that issue going forward.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Madam Chair, might I expand a little bit on an answer that Jared gave earlier, just with a little bit more context?
Yes, you may. Thank you.
So regarding the site, the oil and gas site, it's the operator of Prospect Energy that still owns the property, and the wells in the site are now actually part of the state's Orphan Well Program, and it's the state's responsibility for their reclamation. So I just wanted to make that clear.
Thanks, colleague.
That was going to be a clarifying question I had because we had actually some information about that recently. So thank you both. Commissioner Stevens.
Yeah, Jared, you said that AT&T is considering, so are there any cell providers currently located in this space?
So Dish Network is currently co-located on the facility, and AT&T has had an EFR, an eligible facilities request permit, already gone through planning and has, to my understanding, been approved through our building department already. I can't quite recall whether I had signed off on the plot plan already, but it effectively is using what is the 60-foot height of the facility to allow AT&T to locate. They've not yet built it out, to my understanding, but they are in the process of permitting through it.
And could other providers co-locate if beyond those two that are contemplated, AT&T and Verizon, if the 10-foot extension were allowed? Or does that just allow for a couple more? And that may be a question for the applicant as well.
It may be best answered by the applicant. To my understanding, based on our correspondence, the extra height allows them extra coverage that they can get in a relative area. I don't know what effects that might have on the cellular if you were to, say, co-locate at 20 foot rather than the 60 or somewhere in between.
And can you remind me when the original permit was issued to allow the 60-foot? Was that 2019?
The case file was 22-WCF 0075. And it was approved, I believe, January of 2023. We're looking at about 3 years out.
Okay, thank you.
Some of my questions have been answered, but I'm hearing that it seems like maybe it'd be better for us to have a presentation from the applicant and then ask some questions. But I will hold my questions and maybe ask once we hear from the applicant. So unless there's other questions, I'm going to go ahead and invite the applicant to come forward, and please come forward and also make your presentation. We normally allow 10 minutes for this presentation, and I'm hoping that you have been informed of that. So come on forward and please proceed and let us know if we needed to consider something other than a 10 minutes. But we do that for all applicants, allow 10 minutes.
Thank you, Commissioners, and thank you for that. My name is Michael Powers. I represent Atlas Tower 1 LLC. We are a Boulder, Colorado company that works with all the mobile network organizations, T-Mobile, Verizon, AT&T, Dish, etc. And we are responsible for almost everything that you just started to talk with. I think I'll start with the easy stuff. I'm going to start with landscaping because that's an easy one to just explain. We did have professional landscapers maintaining the trees, but they died anyway. We know that we have a obligation pursuant to our original permit to make sure that doesn't happen. So we are absolutely going to just redo the landscaping, and we've been advised by our landscapers and our subcontractors that do that kind of work that would be better started sometime in the late March, maybe mid-April, and it's an expensive mistake for us because we will be just buying new trees and shrubs just to match what the original landscaping requirement was. And so I apologize for that, but that is something that we absolutely can and will fix. Second question I think we could go on is sorry, maybe the next thing we should talk about is the tower itself and its capacity, because I think that that'll give a framework for understanding what's going on with the contracts. This particular site was built, it was originally, I believe, the permit was for 80 feet, but we were approved for 60. Generally speaking, these sites require 10 feet of horizontal, or not horizontal, vertical, thank you, spaces. And the first 20 feet of almost any structure really doesn't get much coverage. I mean, if you want to think about RF signal as a light, like a flashlight, if you're down low, you're going to be, the flashlight can't go past the trees or the houses or the cars. It's what we would call clutter in the lingo. So basically, a good signal needs, the antennas need 10 feet of vertical height to make their equipment work, and also not be a problem with other frequencies on the same pole. So it's very common in this industry for 10 feet. Sometimes AT&T for some reason asks for 12. But so at this point we have dish network at 45 feet. And when I say 45 feet, that's the middle rad, so that's 40 to 50. T-Mobile is currently has signed a contract to occupy the 50 to 60 height, and now we are working with Verizon, and Verizon has told us that the 30 to 40 rad or space, it's not going to work for them. So that's why we're here. We're asking for an extension to be able to get Verizon on that site between 50 and 60 feet. I know that the installations have been going quite slow. Quite frankly, our industry has been in a lot of turmoil since satellite launching of communication equipment. There was a lot of slowdown, and quite frankly, Verizon and AT&T and Verizon and T-Mobile have substantially reduced their headcount nationally in the last 2 years. I don't think that's a trend that's going to continue, but it has been a trend in the last few years. So we did have Dish install, but we had to wait a long time for T-Mobile to get back online on this particular space. They have actually signed a contract. It was signed on September 5th, 25, and they're moving forward. And as your planner just noted, they have started to go through the permitting process for their equipment. As for there was comments about how the tower actually looks. It is a monopine. It's basically a monopole, which has fake leaves and so on to make it look a little bit more less engineered and more of a natural thing in the area. It is obviously a little bit of an art, and I've heard the comments about the tapering and the top of the tower. If we are allowed to, if we are given a variance for the 10 feet, all of as I understand the reconstruction of the tower, most of the branches will actually have to be removed, and then we'll have to bring in new branches, and they'll all have to be shuffled up. And so to the extent the top of the tower doesn't look so great, that was the comment I heard a couple times, we can work on making sure that that element is done as well as it can be. And just to note, to be very specific about heights, this the tower as it is right now is pursuant to its permit 60 feet tall, but there are a few branches that go up to 64 feet, and that is also, I believe, part of the lightning rod, which would have been discussed in the original permit. So with that, I think I've covered most of what was discussed. Basically, what it comes down to is we have built a multi-use structure. It is capable of housing more than 4 carriers, whether it's a regular phone carrier or emergency response, ambulance, fire, etc. And at this point, with Dish on there already, Verizon very interested in moving forward and actually moving forward, and T-Mobile signing a contract and also getting their permits for their equipment. I think in the next 4 or 5 months, we will have 3 carriers on that site, assuming this commission allows us to move forward with the extension. I think I'll stop there. I'm sure there'll be more questions, but this seems like a good place to stop.
Thank you for presentation. I'm not sure if you got through all your slides, so you have about a minute left. I didn't know if there's other slides you wanted to cover in your presentation.
No, I don't think so. I do want to just emphasize that without the extra space, Verizon will not co-locate on site. They've done an engineering exercise where the coverage is just not tenable for their business case for their customers at the much lower height. I hope I have the chance to answer any other questions that might come up, but I thank you for your time.
Thank you for your presentation. Yeah, if you'll just stay right there for a moment, I'll see, I'm sure any of the commissioners, we will all have some questions. So I'll start with Commissioner Stevens. Do you have any questions for the applicant?
Yeah, thank you, Michael. I do have some questions. So on this, I don't see AT&T. Did you say AT on this slide, particular slide? I see Dish and T-Mobile and Verizon. There's still room for AT&T in somewhere in here.
I may have misspoke.
It might
yeah.
not have been AT&T. It was maybe Verizon.
I believe T-Mobile in this circumstance.
Oh, T-Mobile. Okay.
So my notes from our operations team is, I'll just go through it again. Dish is currently installed at 45 feet. Verizon's engineers indicated that 35 feet was too low for the necessary coverage, and that is why we are here today for the extension. We will be replacing the landscaping, and we are actively marketing with AT&T, but AT&T has not, to date, had some interest.
Would there be space for AT&T in the current, let's say, were this to be approved to 70 feet, would there be space for AT&T, or is every kind of provider needing their own kind of 10 feet?
I would say it's an unknown at this time.
Okay.
You would think it'd be pretty logical that the carriers would just slot in the 10-foot slots, and they wouldn't want to go low. They want to be high. But some of the carriers have better FC, more powerful frequencies where they're able to use a lower site on the tower when another carrier couldn't, and vice versa. So the only way to really know if AT&T could be the 4th carrier on this tower would be for them to have enough interest to come out and do a study, and that's exactly what Verizon did. But at this point in time, I can't say yes or no.
Okay.
I do know this is an area that's growing, and this is a great spot to get coverage for a lot of carriers.
Thank you. And then when you were describing why, this was approved a few years ago, and then not, we only have one carrier, which is Dish, which I guess I didn't even think about, that's more of a, is that more television? They're not a telecommunications.
It's an interesting story.
Okay.
Satellite TV is dying, or it's dead. And so Dish, which is a Colorado company, Charlie Ergen, one of the top most richest guys in Colorado, he has been actively taking his FCC licenses that were from ground to satellite and repurposing them with the FCC. And now he's using those frequencies to have a signal that could be used like AT&T or Verizon. So it's now, he's using those signals ground to ground instead of ground to satellite. It's an interesting change, and it also, I think, spooked some of the carriers at a point in time, because that new network allegedly was going to be based on a different technology that's very common in Europe, which is Open RAN. Open RAN would have allowed Dish to put it in antennas that would work on multiple different different frequencies, and possibly even roam on all of the current carriers in the area. So we didn't really know what was going to happen, and I think that did slow down the interest. So I think they were waiting to see if Dish Network was actually going to do that, and if they did, then maybe these other carriers wouldn't need a spot because they could use the antennas that Dish put on. 3 years later, it turns out they kind of skipped that step.
Interesting.
They only built it out with the lowest dollar, essentially. They only used their frequencies. They didn't make it Open RAN, which was a disappointment for the consumer.
Yeah.
And so that's where we stand.
And so is Dish, so Dish is a continuing partner and won't be like removing any that thing from there. But they're maybe selling the
Yeah, it's all in flux right now.
Okay,
It's possible that they will sell all of their assets, maybe some.
Okay.
I know there's competition in this space with Amazon and other large movers of markets, so it's really hard to see what's going to happen.
And then, yeah, thank you. And then last question is, you talked about sort of kind of configuring maybe what I'll refer to as the branches on
Yep.
the tree.
Yeah.
Kind of like a Christmas tree where you're putting maybe some of the ones from the bottom on the top, if anybody's put together a Christmas tree, or I don't know what that looks like. Is that a fair statement to say there's going to be some attempt to make it maybe look a little more natural?
Yeah, so again, you're right. It's sort of like when you buy a metal tree and you have to put the branches in. And what I'm saying is, in order to keep the aesthetic of a mono pine, we will have to take all the branches off, move all of the branches up, and then the new branches will be basically on the bottom. If we didn't do that, it would look ridiculous. So it's an opportunity for us to try to reconfigure some of the small issues that I've been hearing about the way the top of the tower looked.
Okay. Yeah.
But yeah, that we absolutely did develop this and build this to the conditions of the permit. There would have been I think a branch per foot a spec, like how many branches per foot. There would have been one of those. I think that's usually done that way. And so we will maintain, what I'm really saying is we will maintain that density and move the branches in a way that the shorter ones are up top and the new ones are down low.
Thank you, and thank you to staff for highlighting that in the recommendations. Can I ask just a brief question that came up with this conversation to staff? So sometimes we allow for unconcealed at a certain height because it's like there's just not trees that are that tall, and clearly, like with some of the foliage that's gone away, it hasn't. Is there? I mean, we're still saying that this is okay to have the 70-foot tree. Is there any reason that we're not saying that this should just be a plain old tower at some point?
Well, so within our land use code, up to size 60, we do allow for the concealed facilities and anything after. Exactly what you said, the conception of that, at least to my understanding, is that after that size, you're looking at something that might look to be an outlier depending on the area. Looking at the adjacent cottonwoods and a lot of the larger trees around that area, seeing that it also meets the appeal criteria, we were comfortable recommending approval on the application for that size, and that it would have been the minimum action for Verizon to co-locate there, among other things. I can go into more depth on that if you'd like.
That answers my question. I'm good. Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you.
Thank you for explaining some of the things. Commissioner Stephen had asked some of my questions. I guess, can you clarify a little bit more about the lightning rod portion of that? I'm looking at I don't know, Jerry, if you can go back to that photo. I'm trying to understand, is that where that is, and how does that impact the height, if I could? Yeah, go ahead. Thank you.
So it's pretty simple. When this body permits a structure, a tower structure, the tower structure is the structure that is engineered to be connected to concrete in the ground, and it has a structural strength that is, very, very well engineered for all kinds of things: ice, wind, hot, and so on. The top of the tower stops at 60 feet above ground level right now. There is a very small, thin lightning rod that's 4 feet above the 60-foot top. If that was not approved, I'm sure it was when this was approved first. If that was something of concern, we could move the lightning rod lower so the top of the rod would match the top of the tower at whatever height it is, but it wouldn't work as well. And it's pretty thin, can't really see it much. But when we put the fake branches on, there were a few branches put around the lightning rod above the height of 60. That's not part of the tower, it's just a branch. So it could be taken off, but I think it looks better with it on.
Okay, so I'm just, and maybe this is a clarification for either staff or the applicant. So even if it's 70 feet, there's still another 4 feet with more branches above the 70 feet because it's the lightning rod is the 4 feet above that.
That would be our request.
Okay.
It's not imperative that it goes to 74 feet, but having a little bit of that branching and the lightning rod above the tower just makes it works a little better from an aesthetic point and an electrical grounding point.
And I think that's always important because even if it's just another 4 feet, it is visually 4 more feet for the public and maybe above that, what they think is the limit. So my next question, and I want to build off what Commissioner Stevens had been talking about. So it's interesting to me, and I think you kind of shared about the different carriers and different frequencies and different heights. So if T-Mobile's planned or platted to have the, it's 45 to, I'm just guessing, there, thank you. 46 to 56. And then you're saying the other one for the needed would be the 60 to 66 or the 56 to 66. So that leaves 4 feet for others, or is that 4 feet could take or absorb the 4 feet for the lightning thing? Because I see it from 66, but the height pole is 70. So I'm curious about that extra 4 feet at the top. What is necessary up there for the next 4 feet?
So there's only one lightning system, and the system is holistic. That system is a system of wire, hard copper, that goes through and down and under the concrete floor, and then it is connected on different portions of the tower itself, and then it has what you might think about as a collector on top. And basically, that lightning rod and all of that wire creates a negative a system whereby when there's positive ions in the around the tower, that they go into that system and dissipate in the ground, just like a grounding log. There's only one. The lightning rod could be below the top again. Could be, it's the same height as the top of the tower, and it will still work pretty well. But it's best a little bit proud of the tower. But either way, we will have that system in there, and they do work very well.
Yeah, I'm aware of that because when I constructed our home, we had 20 years ago, and then we had to have a lightning rod on the top, and it was amazing to understand, learn all that. When you talk about moving the branches up from the bottom to the top, obviously it seems like maybe the ones at the bottom now are the same, certain lengths, you're going to move those up and then move the other ones or put newer ones down that I guess would be wider. How are you going to weathering even though it's been 3 years, they might be a different color, a monotone. What does that look like to make sure that it doesn't, you can definitely see there's some newer branches and they're a different color than the ones at the top?
It's a good question. We will absolutely be using the same manufacturer, and if the branches don't look like they're still new, we will go back and tell them we need new branches, because this is an expensive item that's got a warranty.
Yeah.
But yeah, conceptually, if the branches are like this, we're just moving everything up and then putting the new ones below.
And I appreciate that because I think that is important. I've seen that happen before where you add something new and it's different shade because that paint color, that lot is gone, all those things. But it matters because that's important for neighbors who are looking at it, have to look at it outside their kitchen window or something. I'm not sure if you had answered Commissioner Kafas's question earlier, so I'm going to ask it, and again, just to kind of clarify, obviously, maybe one of the reasons cell coverage hadn't improved as it was stated in the original application. And I remember that hearing because I remember how much I was trying to really make sure I understood a lot of these things because we don't do this a lot, but it's important to understand some of the technical things. But really, since it was only Dish at that time and you haven't really put Verizon, that's why most of the folks would not have seen any difference or improvement in cell tower coverage. Would that be?
Yeah,
am I understanding that?
That's unfortunately absolutely the case. I've been doing this for a long time. We always build for 4 carriers structurally, and what I've noticed over decades now is that once you get 2 carriers, because we live in a world where generally there's only 3. Sprint was 4th a while ago, but they're gone. Generally speaking, when we get to 2 carriers, one of the carriers that's already there will sign a roaming agreement with one of the others. And so it's tough to get to 3, but it's possible. And of course, the height also gives the community the ability to put other very important EMS, emergency responder type equipment, which is also important for this area of the community. But yeah, with just Dish at 35, I can see why it would be a big disappointment. But with these $2 billion carriers going on in the next 5 months, I think it's going to be a world of difference.
Great. So now I'm asking another question because you just stated that. So with the 2 new carriers, that's why I was wondering why, couldn't they just collate at the same height? But it sounds like there's some technical things that maybe I don't understand. Maybe they interfere with each other's signals. But if you just mentioned for our first responders and EMS maybe having some things they might want to collate on that tower, is that, and maybe this is a question for staff as well, is that something that you charge our EMS systems for? Or they have to rent that space, or is that just a public benefit? And then staff, how does that work with our application, and is that public benefit, and how would that I'm assuming they can co-locate or be in the same side. We don't need to add another couple of feet to add those kinds of issues. So I don't, maybe you first, and then maybe staff can follow up. I'm just curious about that piece.
Sure. The carriers that we were familiar with, Verizon, AT&T, and T-Mobile, they're going to put up arrays of equipment are going to be 600 to 800 pounds. I mean, this is a huge load. And it's a very big deal to get that equipment on. It costs them $75,000 to $100,000 to get their antennas on a site. Most of the type of equipment that your first responders in your community are much smaller. We're talking something that might be 30 to 50 pounds, something that would work well at a lower rad. We often give great deals for that type of emergency responder equipment. It's not something we really make much money on. Usually it's trying to catch up for the issues with insurance or something like that. But that's not our main business. But we have, over the years, we've leased to EMS, FBI, maritime, when we have sites near the ocean, academic weather monitoring, all kinds of things. Towers can be used for a myriad of other things you might not think of right now, but maybe your community will ask to put something on our tower in the future. Who knows?
Great. I think that's all I have for right now. I have a couple of questions for staff, though. I want to make sure my colleagues don't have Commissioners Follis. Oh, I'm sorry. Did I not ask?
Moving forward, I have a couple more questions. And by the way, thank you for your presentation, Michael. It is helpful. One question I have is, especially under the scenario where there might be two cell service providers, Verizon and T-Mobile, how will this additional height improve service in the area in terms of range, signal, reliability?
It's going to be totally different. I mean, you're really working with zero in this node of your community. So now we'll have T-Mobile and Verizon will be at a very good height pursuant to
and that will extend the coverage, the radius of the coverage. How does that work?
Basically, the antennas will be put in the places where they need it to work, and they'll make sure that if they need more coverage, they come back maybe 6 months later and add or remove antennas. That's kind of an engineering thing that usually happens as they integrate the new towers into the community. Sometimes they'll go with a new tower antenna installation. Sometimes they'll go to another tower that they have somewhere else, maybe a mile away, and they'll do something that's counterintuitive. Sometimes they will reduce the coverage from another site because they don't want to overlap. So it's a very kind of a very long engineering process. Usually takes maybe even a year to really totally dial in. But with the two carriers coming on, I think the community is going to be very happy with their options, and it'll be much better than it is now.
If I may, just two more questions, and then we can certainly move on to public comment. My next question, Michael, is who is responsible for communication with the community, with the neighborhood? Because I think that was an issue in the past. So is it Atlas Tower's responsibility to make sure there's a neighborhood a portal where people can, if they have an issue or a tree has died, who's responsible for that kind of neighborhood communication?
So Atlas Tower is essentially the applicant,
Yeah.
and so we do all of the things related to the tower and on the ground, the foliage, if there's any sounds or smells or issues, a fence falls over, whatever. We are the custodian of that, and we buy our license or permit from the county, have to maintain those things. To the extent there is issues that might come up that are out of our scope, we obviously have a relationship and a contract with the carrier. So maybe let's say Verizon has a motion detected light to walk into their compound, and that's turning on all the time. We would not actually fix that. We would note to the carrier, hey, you've got an issue here, fix it. We are their landlord, and we would be telling them to fix their equipment. It's kind of a mix, but your one-stop place to have comments or criticism or requests would be Atlas Tower. And we're a multinational company now, and we still live we're in Boulder, Colorado, so we're easy to reach. And I'm here today because I wanted to get out and see real people instead of a Zoom, so I can do that because you guys are just 45 minutes away.
Thank you. From Boulder, yes. And just a suggestion for consideration, and that is, I don't know if you already have this, but that there be a customer service, a phone number or an email address that is really apparent to the community, so they know, because maybe people can't track you down there in Boulder. So I'd like to suggest that, unless it already exists.
Two responses. One,
Please.
We've had one phone number for almost 15 years now that's very easy to find on the internet. And also, there'll be two phone numbers on the FCC placard. The two placards will show, or the placard, sorry, will show Atlas's name, Atlas's phone number. I'm not sure if we put an email on there. And then there'll be a 1-800 number for emergencies, and that does a backdoor to the carrier, so if there was an issue. And then there's also usually information for fire and emergency on that as well.
So then my final comment question is, so as you are replanting, to go back to the landscape, circle back just for a moment, as you and the professional landscapers are planting what I understand need to be mature plants, mature trees and shrubs in March or April, if by July or August there's no rain and plants die off, people can go to that little placard and call up or try to prevent plants from dying off. They can communicate to make sure that things are in order.
Absolutely. And we've had conversations internally about having the soil tested, because that might be one of the issues why the trees died. There is contamination that has not been reclamated close to this site. And if that's the case, maybe we'll try to get some really big pots. I don't know. I'm not a landscaper.
Okay, thank you.
Madam Chair, can I just add one quick comment? We also have code compliance with Larimer County, and so any neighbors who see concerns with landscaping are more than welcome to reach out to our code compliance inspectors, which can be reached through the website. So we do have that avenue as well.
Thank you. And I was actually going to to mention that, so thanks for doing that, Jenny. I think my next questions will be for staff, so I think there won't be any further questions. You're welcome to sit down, and I will be asking the questions before public comment, so we won't go to public comment right away because I had some questions. But go ahead and have a seat, and then we'll have you up for rebuttal after that. And so I want to ask staff real quick two different questions. One is about the 70 feet, and then we have this other 4 feet on top for a lightning rod, which will have more branches. So in my mind, just knowing how the public's, it's really 74 feet in height when we add on that lightning rod. So how do we square that? And if they're open to bringing that down a little bit, would that be something you would all recommend, or did you discuss that? And wondering, when we talk about, it's a 70-foot height maximum, but then there's this 4 feet. Can you kind of help me square that, especially since I brought this out in the public to kind of discuss?
Yeah, so when we look at cellular applications, we're typically including what is the bowl of the tower rather than what would be the associated pole or any of the concealment that would have been required to help effectively conceal it from the community around it. It's something that we could consider within this application for sure, shortening the scope of what that tower is. It's not something that we had discussed up front as staff between, amongst ourselves, but it's something we could consider.
I think after public comment, I'll ask you what my colleagues and want to talk to the applicant, and just, not to throw a curveball, but, it's still kind of a visual thing, and 4 more feet is 4 more feet. Thank you for that. And then also, I wanted to talk about, since this is within a GMA district, a growth management area district for those in the audience, the proposed use, one of the criteria is be consistent with the applicable supplementary regulations to the GMA district. And I know that it was said in the reports that it was consistent with the comprehensive plan, and that the extension would be consistent with the certain policies about promoting resiliency and redundancy, but then also this application type is not subject to the annexation based on the adopted IGA intergovernmental agreement between Fort Collins and Larimer County. And so, but when I go back and it says Fort Collins provided that the existing and proposed tower would both qualify as a non-conforming site feature if annexed in the future. But when I go and read the comments that were on page from the city of Fort Collins and from the staff, 118 through maybe 121, and I was reading through those, there's some specifics. And so can you expand on how that kind of came to make the criteria? And were there any concerns from Fort Collins, because it talks about height and also the radius, and then the songbirds and the nesting and some of those things that I'm just wanted to kind of expand on that a little bit, so at least I understand and feel a little more comfortable with what I read in the full report versus what's the consent version. Just want to understand how we got to that point. So.
Absolutely. So the city of Fort Collins, when they commented, they did not express disapproval of the application. Instead, if it were to be annexed, they would then, as you said, take it on as a non-conforming property, as they do with different cellular facilities, among other different property types that we have within the county that end up going within their GMA. The ASR application type, the Administrative Special Review, if I could speak, but the appeal as well as the ASR do not trigger that annexation underneath of what our current agreement is, meaning that it falls underneath of Larimer County's jurisdictional rules, obviously the reason that we're processing it. If they had been in opposition of the case, and if it was inconsistent with the character in that way that they were oppositional, then this would be a little bit different of a discussion. But within the context of that case, and I called to reaffirm this too, there was not a firm one way or another, then they left it for us at our discretion to decide.
That's very, very helpful. I appreciate you extending on that because I did wonder about things like the Box Elder Creek sanitation and some of those other things. And we do know this site has some extraordinary conditions and the things with it being an orphaned in the orphan well program, which we're trying to, address maybe some of the conditions that might be not ideal for being a former oil and gas site that might be, bringing some issues with the soil and some of those other things. So I think that's all I had for now. I really want to thank you for answering the question how I hope to have you, structure that. So thank you, Jared, for that. Any other questions for staff? Okay, so we'll move on now to public comment, and we will open the public comment portion of this hearing on this item, and commenters are allowed 3 minutes to provide testimony on this item. And so I don't know, do we have a sign up already or just inviting folks up? Okay, so if there's anyone in the audience who wishes now to speak on this proposal, please come to the podium and state your name and spell your name for the record. And if you're joining for Zoom, we will contact you in a moment for you to join as well. Thank you. And please say your name and if it's, but go ahead and spell it for our clerk and recorder.
Okay,
Thank
my
you.
name's John Riley. That's R-A-L-E-Y. Couple things. One, I was really glad to see you started with the Pledge of Allegiance. That's awesome. A couple of things. One, they put in a tower, and it's been there for 2 years, and I live right across the street from it. Didn't fight it because it's horrible coverage in the north side of town. To your question about improving coverage, there's nothing now, so it's needed. The problem is it's 2 years later and we still have nothing. So a couple things I'd suggest considering. One, if we're 2 years from now and we still have nothing, it should be removed. Or there should be some way that we're not stuck with an ugly tower for no reason. Having an ugly tower for a reason, we can deal with. Otherwise, no. And there should be some penalties, too. The other one is on the landscaping. I'd suggest, I didn't read it, so I don't know what height the trees were supposed to be, etc. Whatever they are, they should be 2 feet taller now because we're 2 years without trees. So whatever height they should be at now, well, actually they grow slow at first, but whatever the average growth rate, I think it's reasonable to expect they're higher, and there's reasonable to expect something put in there as far as conditions, like bring in water tanks every now and then. Trees don't really grow unless you water them. And the other thing is that if they die again, there should be, or they're not maintained properly for proper growth, there should be some penalties. Other than that, it's an ugly tower. It's still going to be an ugly tower. We need it. So other than that, I don't really care. But those are my thoughts. And I'm going to be rude and leave because I have to be somewhere. But anyway,
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time and your public comment. All right. Next, is there anyone else in the audience that wishes to come up and speak? Come on up to the podium, sir. Please state your name. And if you wouldn't mind spelling it for the clerk, you have 3 minutes.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. My name is Jim Miles, M-I-L-E-S. I'm a resident of the Hearthfire subdivision. I live within a couple of 100 yards of the current cell tower in question and in a direct line of sight. I'm testifying here today as an advocate and proponent for this proposed variance request. It's common knowledge that the City of Fort Collins growth management area is woefully devoid of adequate cell phone coverage. Having been involved in the hearings for the cell tower installation at Turnberry and Country Club Roads, as well as the initial hearing for this facility, I can't tell you how exasperating it is to have to keep hashing over time and again, excuse me, the same information in order to justify a basic public service and public safety need. As we reported in the prior hearing on this facility, the FCC has stated that it's probably a higher percent now, but over 70% of all 911 emergency calls are placed via cell phones. As I recall, your initial approval of this facility was significantly impacted by that statistic. During all of the cell tower debates, the cell phone providers have consistently advised that in order for the towers to serve the optimum number of citizens, they need to be at least 60 feet tall. They have, in fact, stated that the taller the better, because obviously the cell signals travel via line of sight. This portion of Northeast Fort Collins has over 1,000 homes, either built or in process, with several thousand more being proposed. It's hard to understand why adequate cell phone coverage isn't a more significant topic. I don't personally understand the city of Fort Collins' objections to this request. It's not clear what the problem is, but beyond what I believe is an arbitrarily imposed 45-foot height limit. Sure, you can see the tower from the Hearthfire subdivision, but I would think that the public safety factor would overshadow this objection. The tower is already in place, it's completely underutilized, and the community is in dire need of this service. If providers say they need the additional 10 feet to be enticed to provide this service, it seems only logical to me to proceed. I respectfully urge your approval of this modification request. Thank you.
Thank you, sir, for your public comment. Anyone else would like to come up for public comment in person? Please, sir, come on. Welcome. Come on up to the podium. State your name if you wouldn't mind spelling it. Thank you.
Yes, my name is David Haas, Haase. I also live in Hearthfire. I was part of this process in January 2023 when this was initially proposed and approved. There's no way that this applicant can say that drawings have been presented here today look anything like the finished product, nor has been cared for like it. The mature height and trees that Representative or Commissioner Kvalis put in for that at our urging certainly was ignored at the least, and not even bothered to take care of what was planted there. So we hope that, as a prior speaker said, Mr. Riley, that there would be something to hold the applicant to responsible for taking care of this. Yes, we do need better cell tower coverage out there. There is already one up on Turnberry near Country Club Road. There will be others proposed in the area in January 2023 when this was originally proposed. This is for the immediate area. And you look at the application now, if you go well into the 100 plus pages there, that adding 10 more feet mostly is a profit-making, is a profit-making part of this plan for this private company. And I understand their business to make money, but that does not mean we have to have extra height just to honor everybody that wants to come out there and add to this tower. Don't need more height to have emergency systems already added to this, as was presented to us earlier. That can be handled without any additional height at this time. If it goes to 70 foot, what is to stop them from coming in next year and saying we need 80 foot? And as is brought up earlier, it is not 60, it's 64 foot. It'll be 74 foot. And those are the things I think that we care about. We do want good service. We do want emergency services. This doesn't really seem to add the needed amount just for the emergency services. And at the very base of this, we would like to make sure that this applicant is responsible for the things that they're supposed to be responsible for, even what they've got now and ongoing.
Thank you, sir, for your public comment.
Thank you.
Okay. Anybody else would like to make public comment in the room? Okay, let's go online, Ryan, and see if anyone else online would like to make public comment.
If anyone would like to make public comment on this case specifically, please use the raise your hand function or *9 now. Madam Chair, we have no hands raised.
Okay, I'll take one more chance. Anybody else in the audience, since we have so many folks today? Thanks for coming. Public comment? If not, we'll close public comment. Okay, we'll close public comment, and I'll invite the applicant back up to the podium to have any rebuttal of public comment. And if you'd like to come up and address any of the public comment, you'd have 5 minutes.
I think I'd just like to reiterate that Atlas Tower is happy to and would adhere to any extra landscaping criteria that was approved by or suggested by staff. And the second thing I want to sort of just repeat, if we don't get the extension, we will not get Verizon. So this is more than just a business deal. This is actual coverage for 2 different companies instead of 1. Unfortunately, this is how this works. The carriers are stacked up vertically, and so the only way to get another carrier can't, it is not going to work going underneath the current. Basically, we need the extension to bring Verizon back to your community. That's all I have.
Great. I appreciate your time, and staff, I'll just offer to you now, do you have any more follow-up from the public testimony, the applicant's rebuttal that you'd like to add?
I wouldn't say much more that he hadn't already provided or that the public had noticed there. Looking then at the site, we do have a few different conditions of approval that help to address some of what we had received in the comments, if not all. Even including some of the City of Fort Collins integrations into it, with just making sure that it's going to be in an amenable time for what would be songbirds or other sort of nesting species that would be around the area. Staff would be going out and completing a satisfactory review of the site to ensure that it's going to comply with whatever the conditions of approval that are at the site. Similarly to what was approved last time and ensuring that the species were as mature as possible, we're going to continue that tradition of, not tradition, but continuing the condition of adding the 80-20 deciduous, also taking into consideration the landscaping at the site that exists outside of just that scope of the facility. That I think that's about it. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Gonzalez, I saw your hand raised. Would you like to, you have another question or?
Well, I don't think we got an answer to what was suggested earlier. I think Michael was talking about it. We've got to have the additional 10 feet of height plus an additional 4 feet for the lightning rod. Could someone clarify that? Because I think it was suggested, well, rather than going from 60 to 70, we could go from 60 to 66 and then stick a lightning rod in there somewhere.
So that's certainly a condition you could propose on the application.
Well, I'd like to know if it's going to work. If they need that 10 feet plus the lightning rod height, is that going to allow for, the providers to expand the coverage?
And if I may, Commissioner, it's my understanding that currently with the lightning rod, it's at 64 feet currently, so it's still just a 10-foot addition. So it's the actual tower is currently 60 feet tall plus the lightning rod, which takes it to 64. And they're just adding the 10 feet. So it'd be 10 additional feet of tower, but it would still encompass that extra 4 feet for the lightning rod.
Excuse me. So we're looking at, in terms of visibility and aesthetics, although the lightning rod is essential, we would be looking at a 70 feet tower with all of the foliage, and then on top of that, another 4 feet would be for the lightning rod.
That's correct. So Jared's just pulling up the image now, but the existing tower on the left is currently with the lightning rod and existing foliage at 64 feet. And then the new proposed tower is at 74, including the lightning rod and foliage.
Okay.
So overall, an increase of 10 feet, if that makes sense.
Thanks.
Commissioner Stevens? Do you have any other further questions?
I don't have any questions.
Okay. Sorry, I didn't see your hand up. I just wanted to confirm. So let me go back to that because it seemed like the applicant was open because I think that's what's, we tell it's a 70-foot tower, but really it's the other 4 feet. So I can see aesthetically that's still another 4 feet. So if there was a way to make that maybe even 2 feet or 3 feet, I still want, of course, it's very important to have the lightning rod because it would fry everything, right? But I'm wondering how, if Verizon is expecting, if it's up to 66 and so there's still kind of another 8 feet there that it's kind of, it looks like, Verizon's till 66. So I'm curious from the applicant and from staff, if we ask for that to be closer to the 70 with the antenna.
Can we ask him to come up?
And so, yes, I'm going to ask him, sir. So I was wanting to see if we can also see how staff feels, but also from the applicant, since it seemed like he opened that up, offering to look at that. So if you wouldn't mind coming up, thank you.
I'll add in here that I'm unsure of the viability of the facility given that extra 4 foot or not, or if that makes a difference in them being able to mount at the facility. But I think you might be able to shed a little bit of light on that if that makes the difference.
Yeah, I'm just curious about,
Our request is a 10-foot extension so that we can have the carrier have a full 10 feet and still have that 4 feet for the lightning rod and a little bit of the tree branches. However, if you were to reduce that or take that off the table entirely, the result will be that we won't put the tree branches above the top of the tower, and we will move the lightning rod down. That height is absolutely needed to meet Verizon's engineered design for this site, and they were very adamant that they needed the 10 feet. So it's an issue. We can go one way or the other, and we still can do this. But I honestly think having the lightning rod in its optimal placement and having a few extra branches on top will make the tower actually look better and obviously function a little bit better. It's hard to quantify what the lightning rod might lose in terms of its efficacy, but it is designed generally to be above the structure, and that's what we normally do. I have done this other thing where it's lower, and we usually take an ohm meter to figure out what the loss is in terms of efficacy, but you don't know until it's been there and you've survived some lightning storms.
so there's still, if the Verizon's from 60, from 56 to 66 is the proposed Verizon antennas, then there's still the 4 feet from 66 to 70 that is open. There's nothing there. So, and I'm curious, then there, but you're putting the 74 on 4 feet on top, making it 74. And I understand about adding the branches. I don't think we want to have a flat tree with something sticking up. But can you explain to me, as a layman who's not maybe as well versed as you are in cell towers, not to belabor this, but I'm trying to understand that 4 feet that's there between the 66 and 70. Is that necessary, or what is that for that space? And could that not be the 4 feet for the lightning rod?
Yeah, let me start from the beginning just to make it very simple. The carriers like to use this word rad. It's a radiation something dimension, but it's easier to talk about this in 10-foot vertical chunks. And so we currently now have the highest rad between 50 and 60 feet. And so and then we have 4 foot with a lightning rod and some branches. If we are given a full 10-foot extension by this hearing, then we will just simply give the 10 vertical feet that Verizon needs for their equipment, and again have that antenna move up to the top with a couple of tree branches. If not, we're still going to have to give Verizon the full 10 vertical feet because that's what they need from an engineering perspective. So in that case, we wouldn't put the extra tree branches on the top, and the lightning rod would the tip of the lightning rod would match the tip of the top of the tower.
Okay.
So from my viewpoint, you get a lot for 4 feet. I don't think 4 feet at that height it makes much difference or any difference, but that's a personal subjective opinion. I can't tell you what this commission should do, but I think that would be the best from an engineering standard to grant us the full 10 feet and let us do that.
Okay. And so you made a comment, Commissioner Kafals, was there a?
I just want to get to the bottom line here, so if I may. So what you just said, you threw in subjective and this and that, but from an objective engineering point of view, extending the monopine tower by 10 feet to 70 feet and then another 4 feet for the lightning rod, is that the best way to protect people from lightning hitting and spreading out?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, that's
The
all I
lightning
need to
rod is
know.
designed to be in a space where it's not unencumbered.
Thank you.
And quite frankly, the job of the lightning rod generally is not actually to stop the lightning, but to stop it from actually happening in the first place. As the cloud comes through, and it takes that energy and pushes it immediately into the ground, and so it doesn't do as good a job if it's competing with the structure itself.
Okay, go ahead and have a seat. I'm going to ask staff a couple of questions. Thank you. So staff, one of the comments from public comment, and I can understand, but I would kind of address that in some of my questions, is the reasons that hasn't improved self-coverage is because they only had dish, and most people don't have dish. So this is necessary to bring that other group up forward for that. And then the trees didn't last, and they were asking for some conditions. And so I read the conditions, but I just want to clarify, there is accountability for both items. I want to be very clear that if it doesn't improve, even with this, not everyone's going to have that one carrier, so that may be, a different issue, but it should improve more than today, what's happening, and then the accountability for the landscaping. Can you just clarify both those items for me, please?
Yes, so the accountability for the landscaping actually stands right now, as well as it would with the approval of this application. So they would be obligated to replace any fallen dead that are at the site and ensure their survival. With that too, actually, could you provide that last component of that as well too?
Just accountability for ensuring that the landscape and repairing or adding on, and then I'm not done, Commissioner Kafas, please. And then the other one would be, if the improvement of the coverage does not improve, what is our mechanism for accountability? I know it's just one carrier, but if that doesn't, there's a letter of intent that is in the packet, but that doesn't happen within a certain time, is there any accountability for us in this application for ensuring that there will be an increase in cellular coverage, which obviously the public sees and thinks is necessary for a lot of reasons, but how do we provide some assurance for that? And Christine, thank you I'm trying to get at the heart of the matter for me.
Thank you, Commissioner Shack McNally. That's a great question. This is Christine Luckison from the County Attorney's Office. In line with the coverage comments, which I think are important, I want to make sure that when the board is reviewing this application, they're focused on the criteria, the approval criteria in the land use code. And so I would encourage you to think about where the coverage question would fit within those criteria, and then also how that would be measured as a condition of approval. Would we hire someone to do a coverage analysis? What if the parties disagree? So those are just some questions to think about when you're reflecting on the coverage question. And I'll let if staff has any other comments on that.
Yeah, one other comment. It would be contingent upon them procuring the contract too. I don't know the nature of the agreement that they have, say, with Verizon Wireless or the conversations that they have with AT&T, but I am unaware if it's been finalized, signed for those specific entities, or it's contingent on this. It seems like for Verizon Wireless. Should they not locate at the site, that does then open up the opportunity for other carriers, say lesser ones, to be able to go to the site and then locate, in the same way that the current proposed are.
That's helpful, and thank you, Christine, for adding that layer of consideration. And I know in condition number 2, a recommendation that was, some of that is kind of covered there, but I just needed to clarify that. Okay, that's all I have for right now. Commissioners, unless there's further questions or considerations, then I think that we can move on into deliberations. If my colleagues are ready for deliberations, start with Commissioner Stevens, please.
Sorry, having trouble with the mic. Thank you, Madam Chair. Thanks for everyone who came out to speak today. Thank you for the applicant for answering these questions. I am in support of this application. I hear the need in this area. I am sorry that it took several years to get providers to be willing to be a part of this tower. It sounds like there were some other circumstances that made that happen. But it looks like there's some providers that are definitely interested, and sounds like in the next few months would be interested in, putting their equipment on this tower. So there is a need. There's definitely a need with regard to emergency. We've had people, we received plenty of comments beyond the comments that were heard today in public comment. We got quite a few emails and people who participated through our public comment website, and most of the people were in support. There were people that also expressed concerns about the landscaping and the trees not being mature enough, and then the trees dying off. So, as was stated, we can. It sounds like the company is willing to address this. We certainly can take comments if this doesn't happen with regard to through our code compliance folks. But I am hearing very much that there's a need for this in this community. That there's not only houses that are currently being built, but there are many planned subdivisions in this area. I consider this a public safety issue when people don't have, wireless service or good connections. People do need to call 911 and other kind of emergency, have other kinds of emergencies, and they definitely are reliant on this. Most people don't have a landline any longer. So I will support this application. It seems like it makes sense. I mean, I think my understanding is that the lightning rod is very narrow and thin and not as obtrusive. So I would be supporting, the lightning rod on top. So that would be an additional increase of 10 feet to what's existing at this point. And I'm open to any other conditions, but I do think it's important to have this type of facility present in the neighborhood. It already exists, so we're just adding feet. It's not something new. And while they are never very attractive to look at, as was stated today, they are really crucial to the way we function as a modern society. So I am in support of this application. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Stevens. Commissioner Kafalis.
Thanks. Thank you, Madam Chair. I too will support this application for an appeal and this administrative special review and appeal because all of the review criteria, as we were reminded by our county attorney Christine, that our charge is to do our best to make objective decisions based on these review criteria, and based on the recommendation of our development services team reviewing all the information, the discussion tonight, and thank you to folks who showed up. I believe that the criteria have been met, and therefore supporting this application is appropriate. I also want to add, I don't want to repeat everything that Commissioner Stevens said. I echo what she said. I think the conditions of approval are a way of accountability, and they have to adhere to those conditions of approval. And I think there's not a very good track record here, so that we need to improve that track record. And I would add one final thing, which I don't necessarily think needs to be in a condition of approval, but the communication between the Atlas Towers company and the community has to be improved should there be any problems. And I don't know how it works. I don't think we need to add it, but there was a reference by one of the folks regarding bringing in water, because that's always an issue when it's so arid and semi-arid here. We need to make sure. Can folks hear that?
Yeah.
I have it on quiet. One moment, please. I'm sorry. My apologies. I've said my piece. I support the application. I think the conditions of approval provide accountability. The provider is on notice that the neighborhood, the subdivisions, would like to make sure that the communication is improved, that there's an easy way, if there is an issue, that they can call, whether it's our code compliance folks or whether it's the company, to prevent any future die-off of any trees that may be planted, and that they do need to be mature as possible. And I think the point was also made that the trees that were planted a couple of years ago, a chunk of them are dead, and so they might have been a couple of feet higher. So we need to make sure that these mature as possible trees are at least 2 to 4 feet high, 80%, 20% mix, as has been suggested. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Kafalis. We have and Christine, you're correct. With the administrative review, we have criteria and how would we measure that, but also, the original tower was approved knowing this was going to try to improve cell coverage, and that hasn't been that. So my comments on that were just how maybe publicly state there's some accountability there. Because this is why we see the public need, and unfortunately these towers are never adding to the beauty and the aesthetics, but they try. I get that. We have several administrative special review criteria, and I wanted to, some of those I had to just ask and clarify from my personal review of this, like the recommendations for the referral agencies have been considered adequately. Also wanted to make sure, and that is under special review criteria 6.3.8.d, and that was number 3. And then also the other one I wanted to talk about was 4. Within the GMA district, the proposed use is considered with the applicable supplement regulations to the GMA. My thoughts or concerns were addressed with that. I think we've all been talking about the landscaping. That was something that was a consideration, and of course, I'm always concerned about lighting, but there won't be any artificial lighting here, so that was something else. So I think with all those criteria, the concerns I had have been met. I do agree that there are 11 conditions of approval, which will be a great accountability tool at this. And I'm sure the applicant has heard loud and clear today that this is important and to follow through with these things. Also, Commissioner Stevens, I think that was something I also wanted to highlight what you had said. When we had the public engagement, we had a 73% approval of all of the people, and it seems like the others today were also supportive only if these certain accountability measures were there. So 11 conditions of approval is I think staff have covered those very well. So I also am having addressed some of those concerns with the criteria now addressed for me. I can also support that application as presented. So at this time, I'll ask Commissioner Gafals to please make that motion.
Yes, I'd be happy to. Not that one. I've got something here. I move that the Board of County Commissioners approve the 3653 Hearthfire Cell Tower Expansion and Appeal, file number 25-WCF 0193, subject to the conditions as outlined in the report.
I'm looking for staff. That seems like that is an appropriate motion. So any further discussion? All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
That item passes 3-0, and thank you applicant and members of the public for being here today to address our questions and And we'll now move on. Thank you all for being here from the public, and we will now move on to our item number 2 of discussion. I guess Commissioner Collins needs to stand.
That's all, Madam Chair.
Okay, so we are now moving on to our next item, which is, I just want to make sure I properly state the item. So I'm just going back to the first page, which is the extension of moratorium on data center facilities. And Jenny Axmayer, our planning manager, will present on this item. So Jenny, I'll let you take this away. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good afternoon, Commissioners. This next item is a consideration to extend a previously approved moratorium on data centers. So the moratorium was originally approved for 30 days on January 27th during an admin matters hearing, and we're proposing to extend it until August 25th through this land use hearing, and wanted to allow for an opportunity for public feedback through this venue. So background, staff has recently noticed an increase in interest in developing data centers within Larimer County, and we're considering a data center any large-scale facility designated to house computers and associated components such as telecommunications and storage systems. These facilities have significant impacts on infrastructure, including demands on power, water, telecommunications networks, and transportation systems, as well as potential impacts on surrounding land uses, natural resources, public services, and the character of a community. And these facilities also do generate a significant amount of property tax due to their significant size. So there are pros and cons to these type of facilities. Currently, the county's land use code does not contain specific regulations, standards, or definitions addressing the unique characteristics and impacts of data center facilities, which is why the moratorium is being suggested and extended. Staff are already working with a student through the UC Denver Capstone Masters in Urban and Regional Planning program to research this project and which will help inform our approach to regulations. We've had initial conversations with the Environmental Science Advisory Board from the county on this topic as well, and staff is requesting additional time to further explore how other communities are addressing the topic and if there are any existing model codes and monitor any proposed legislation at the state level. So the Development Services Team recommendation is approval of the extension, and I do have a suggested motion. I am more than happy to take any questions, but I will say one of the reasons we're asking for the moratorium is to learn more about these facilities, and I may not have all the answers to your questions. And I did want to point out that we do have over 20 online attendees in this meeting, so there is some significant interest. Thank you.
Thank you, Jenny. I appreciate your presentation, and I think it is important for folks to understand. Could you go back and maybe just explain, just for the members here, I think there's been some confusion from folks that have contacted us about the 30 days and how we were able to do that, and how we've gotten here today for the 6 month. Just maybe reinforce, that we were trying to create a space quickly so we could maybe get ahead and find out what kind of special, as we were discussing today, special things we need to consider. So if you wouldn't mind maybe adding that extra, thank you.
Yes, Madam Chair, I'd be happy to, and I may have Christine add in a bit more background. The county has the ability to enact a moratorium temporarily. The maximum amount of time that a moratorium can be approved for is 6 months. We are aware of at least 2 groups that potentially were trying to submit active applications for this type of land use. So we wanted to get the moratorium in place before something was submitted and not clear the regulations that would apply to it. But we didn't want to do that without providing a chance for public feedback. And so that's why we only enacted the moratorium for 30 days to begin with, and now we're back to extend it for the length of six months, as we're able to do statutorily. And then at the end of 6 months, we can consider whether it needs to be extended again or not.
Thank you, Jenny. I appreciate you that clarification. So Christine, did you want to add anything to that? Okay.
No, thank you.
Okay. since she had mentioned the county attorney, just want to make sure. Okay, so right now, there's no other presentation other than just allowing for public comment. So I will go ahead and welcome public comment. And I don't think we've had a sign up, so I ask that you come up to the podium. You'll have 3 minutes. And we have several folks online as well. And just state your name clearly, spelling it for the clerk and recorder. And we'll start just by raising your hand, and then I will, sir, with the blue coat, would you please come up and please state your name and spell it, and you have 3 minutes. Thank you for coming.
Thank you for allowing us this time. My name is Bill Thomas. I live in Loveland, and I am alarmed. I have recently come to this conversation about these data centers, and I've been doing a lot of research and phone calling to other communities. And I am concerned because the general public has not been brought in on this. You were very kind to call us back. You talked to my wife, Jill, and you explained some things. But the fact is, in addition to what you just put up on the board there needs to be robust public awareness. So as the staff is working on this, I think there ought to be opportunity more than just today for the public to weigh in. The things that I'm reading about are alarming about these places. And the federal government and the state government are both derelict in their duty not to be addressing this. So we at the local level are the ones left to deal with this. And I just can't believe that this governor or our president has not said, hold on a minute. Let's just, in public service, there's really only one question to ask. Are you helping or are you hurting? We the people. Not somebody out there, but these people right here. And we're not getting any support from anybody else, and we've got to have it from you. So thank you for, I was going to go through the various concerns about this, but you already did a wonderful presentation on that. I just want to emphasize including the public, raising awareness. And if you would mind answering, what is a quasi-judicial process? And what are the guidelines for that? Because you mentioned that to my wife, and we were both wondering what that means. Thank you very much.
Certainly. And thank you for your public comment. I'm just going to maybe let Christine address that real quick about quasi-judicial. I could do it, but I'm going to let the county attorney do that because it's very important to understand. Thank you.
Sure. Thank you so much for the question. I'm from the county attorney's office. A quasi-judicial hearing is a hearing where a decision maker like a board of county commissioners or a city council or an administrative law judge makes a final decision and it can be appealed to the courts. They're sitting in a quasi-judicial capacity, but they're not an appointed judge, like an Article 3 judge or a judge at the Larimer County Courthouse, but they are making a final decision that's appealable.
Thank you, Christine. No, normally we don't do that, but I just thought we'd address that real quick. So, and I appreciate the public comment. Raise your hand next who would like to be for a public comment. We'll go on the end there, and then we can go to you in the red shirt, sir. Please come on up. You'll have 3 minutes. Please say your name fully and spell it for the clerk. Thank you.
My name is Joe O'Neill, O-N-E-I-L. I'm a licensed professional engineer in Colorado in HVAC and refrigeration. And I want to take you through a typical design process for a facility like a data center. The first stage of it is the owner's project requirement stage. This is where owners, designers, architects all get together and they develop what they believe the building will be and how it will perform. This includes energy use, size, appearance, and reliability. Commissioning agents are often a part of this process, and I've been a commissioning agent for going on 5 years. I was in design before that, about another 5 years. At this stage, typically designers and owners will promise the world. PV arrays, reliable energy, renewable energy, no water usage, all the things you would want to see in an application. They will comply with any code you throw at them. Next comes Schematic design, this typically focuses on civil work, site work, architecture, structure. Design development, DD site, the DD phase, this is where equipment is selected. Everything typically goes smoothly up to this point. The fourth stage is construction documents, and this is where guys like me get involved. Mike Tyson once said, everybody's got a plan until they get punched in the mouth. This is where we get punched in the mouth. Owner requirements change. Flaws are found in initial designs, initial load calculations, initial energy models. Contractors get cold feet. Owners get cold feet about their ambitious OPRs. However, at this point, tens, hundreds of thousands of dollars, millions of dollars even have been invested in this project. And it is very difficult to stop the train. All this to say, OPR and goals are commonly not met. Typically sometime between 100% DDs and substantial completion of construction, efficient designs are abandoned for more traditional, reliable systems. In this case, that would mean the removal of air-cooled HVAC equipment for water-cooled equipment that consumes vast amounts of water. But again, it's hard to stop the train when it's gotten to this point. If the land use code has no consideration for when the reality of the power and water requirements of data centers necessitates violations of the land use code, the moratorium on data center construction must be extended. Thank you.
Thank you for your public comment and for your technical information. We'll go on to the next person, a gentleman with the red shirt, if you wouldn't mind coming forward and stating your full name and spelling for the clerk. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Ben Donardo, Denardo. I was born and raised in Fort Collins, Colorado, and though I went to school for Grand Junction, I went to study environmental science at Colorado Mesa University. I'm here today to speak in favor of the Larimer County Moratorium on new data center construction. Part of my studies have been looking at problems holistically rather than just the benefits. While there may be some arguments in favor of new data center construction, but when examined holistically, the long and short-term consequences of new data center construction outweigh any potential benefits. While the impacts of expanding electrical demand and water use for cooling will be hard for Larimer County to continue. It'll be hard for Larimer County to continue providing the same quality of services current citizens and businesses expect and rely on. The addition of data centers in particular can strain the electrical grid by drawing too much power at unpredictable times, leading to brownouts, loss of service, and for existing energy customers. While data center construction can lead to some extra revenue from the county through property taxes and other taxes, data centers do not spur larger employment because after the data centers have been constructed, there are not many people running the data centers on a day-to-day basis. So the case for building data centers is not as strong as with other infrastructure projects. So I urge the Commission to expand the existing data center moratorium and, if possible, expand it further. I understand the Commission's only has so much power for those 6 months. So thank you very much for your time, and I really appreciate it.
Thank you for coming in your public comment. Next, raise your hand. Come on up, sir. If you same drill, name, spell, please, and thank you for coming.
Hello, my name is Kevin Stearns, Stearns. I've been in tech for over 20 years. I'm also an environmental philosopher. And it's important to understand that, while the tech might be promising the world and it's kind of neutral in itself, it can be used for good or bad, the organizations that own and operate this tech have different values than what they express. These data centers are being built across the nation and across the world with venture capital money. Hundreds of billions of dollars are going into their construction. Why? Because these investors want a return on investment. That's how it works. And where are they getting that return from? It's us. It's the extraction of our natural resources, of our labor, of our land, of our information and privacy. And this is how the tech industry operates. They operate at the cutting edge of technology, ahead of the curve of where the law can adapt to. And they get away with most of their operations before the law can come in and regulate it. And so I'm here in support of a continued moratorium on this until the law is able to catch up to this technology. And if you want to see the record of this kind of construction, not just data centers, but the tech industry by large, investigate the history of the cities that they come into and the fallout that they cause. As a case example, maybe Round Rock, Texas, when Dell corporate headquarters moved in, produced about 2,000 jobs and laid them all off in a few years. This was just before the 2001 financial crisis, which is something that we're approaching again. And so until there's some safety measures in place, I think we should be very cautious about saying yes to this kind of construction. Thank you.
Thank you for your public comment. Okay, anyone else raise your hand, please? Like to do public comment? Okay, come on up, sir.
Thank you very much. My name is David Korosishevsky, Korostysevsky. I don't have prepared remarks today, but this is an issue that I care a great deal about. I teach at CSU. My students and I read a lot about generative AI, which is one of the major technologies that this data center construction would be for. And so I wanted to say a few things about what that technology is and what it actually does and does not do based on the latest scholarship. Scholars refer to generative AI in particular as a bullshit machine. It's not hallucinating, and it's not lying to you, because lying requires the intention to deceive. Hallucination is a misperception of reality, and the machine cannot sense reality and therefore can have neither one of those intentions or outcomes. Therefore, we're left with the fact that it's just bullshit. Bullshit that generates not much useful data in exchange for massive power consumption and water consumption, as we have already heard. I just looked at the USDA data before I came up, and indeed Colorado snowpack, where we rely on most of our water from, is woefully low this year, well below average, in some cases more than 50% below average. So these are all things that need to be considered holistically, as people have said, as the county develops guidelines for who should or should not build these things here in our backyard. So for that reason, I'm definitely in support of the moratorium, and I could say more about moratoriums that would be extended. But suffice it to say, for now, I think the county definitely has earned itself 6 months to come up with some guidelines. Thank you.
Thank you for your public comment and being here in person. So I'm going to go online now to the folks online, and if those sitting in the room, I'll give you one last opportunity before we close public comment. So Ryan, would you please see who in line would like to make public comment on this item? Thank you.
If you would like to make public comment on this item, please use the raise your hand function or *9 now. We have a couple of hands raised, so I will begin at the beginning. Megan A. Laser, you have permission to speak. Please state your name and you will have 3 minutes.
Sorry, I didn't catch where my unmute button was there for a second. Yes, I just wanted to say that I am also in agreement on this 6-month moratorium. I wish that the county had time to make that much longer. I'm sure most of our county commissioners probably agree with that. I have major concerns about resource usage, especially our water. This has been the driest winter I think I've ever seen, and I've lived here for 14 years. And I know that that's definitely saying a lot. I also think that the power usage and the utilities usage would really hurt our green energy initiatives that we have fought very hard for in this county. And I think that the county commission is doing a great job by looking at this, putting things on hold as long as they can. And I'm sure that they will reassess again in 6 months and probably, hopefully, come to the same conclusion. I don't think that there are very many people here in Larimer County that would like one of these. They don't bring jobs. They don't really bring anything other than more surveillance robots. So I am very much in favor of the moratorium, and I thank you so much for hearing our comment.
And will you state your name for the record,
Oh,
please?
sorry, Megan Eliezer.
Thank
and
you.
the last name is Eleazer.
Thank you, Megan. Thank you for your public comment. The next participant, thank you.
Casey Gollahue, I apologize. You have permission to speak. Please state your name and you'll have 3 minutes.
Hello. My name is Casey Gollahue, Gollihugh. I know that's a long one. I was born in Littleton and I've lived in Larimer County since 2014. I'm extremely in favor of the memorandum, and I would urge the commission to do anything that they can to extend that in the future. Again, I do know that you are limited with that power, but we've been in a drought for over 2 decades in this state. I think it's extremely irresponsible to even be considering these applications. Thank you for hearing my comment.
Thank you for participating in your public comment today. Next person.
Elaine DeOde, you have permission to speak and you'll have 3 minutes.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, my name is Elaine. My last name is Denhoed. DEN space HOED. I'm highly in favor of the moratorium that's proposed for 6 months. And I'm also highly in favor, one of the other public commenters mentioned that this should be advertised far and wide on public comment when it comes back up again in August. I just happened to hear about this meeting today, and I feel like it's something that the citizens of Larimer County should have a big voice in. Thank you.
Thank you for being here for public comment. Next person, please.
Amy Maxey, you have 3 minutes. Please state your name.
Hi, my name is Amy Maxey, Maxey, and I am in support of the moratorium. I think, as others have stated, this would be a huge resource drain for an already resource scarce area. And ideally, we would push this as far as we can to not allow any data centers built in our area. Just wanted to keep it short and sweet and say that I am in favor of this and echo a lot of the concerns of the other community members. Thank you.
Thank you, Amy, for your public comment. We'll move on to Ryan Van Pelt. Ryan, thank you. Ryan, would you like to unmute and speak, please?
Okay. Yes, this is Ryan Van Pelt. Last name is spelled V as in Victor, A-N, space Pelt as in Peter, E-L-T. And I'm coming more from the water resources side. My specialty is in water resources engineering. And speaking in regards from what I've heard of as I've looked into this for the city of Loveland, there is some very effective cooling systems out there. I mean, let me just state that I'm also in favor of the 60-day moratorium, but if the county is going to look into this and even consider data centers, I would really recommend studying what our WAR has already done and the type of technology they allow that's a very efficient cooling system that doesn't use as much water as kind of a model moving forward if we even allow for data centers in the county. And that's really all I wanted to say.
Thank you, Ryan, for your public comment. Ryan, can you share the next person? I don't see their name up, so.
Yes, Catherine Hall.
Hi, everyone. This is Catherine. Last name Hall, H-A-L-L. I want to speak in favor of the moratorium, and I have a slightly different reason for that to add on to what everybody else has so eloquently said, which is that if there are benefits to this facility, it's not time critical. The benefits will be there in a year, they'll be there in 2 years. And that is an important thing to consider when you're looking at something with such heavy costs and risks. Thank you.
Thank you, Catherine, for your public comment. Ryan, do we have a couple more?
Yes. Tim Roeder, you have permission to speak.
Can you hear me?
Very lightly.
Hi.
There you go. Thank you.
Hi, this is Tim Rader, last name Roebeer. And I just wanted to call in favor of the moratorium. I am an electrical engineer by education, software engineer currently. I would also like to mention I'm a resident of Fort Collins and have been since 2000. And while I won't get into all the implications of AI and whether or not it's useful or not, I do see the stories that are coming out of these data centers across the United States. I'm seeing residents that are being saddled with all the negative consequences of utility price increases, water and noise pollution, which is another big one that hasn't been mentioned, especially the implications of infrasound on human bodies or on nature, all of that pollution. And of course, the lies from these data center companies, which are all promising to bring jobs to the community and lots of tax dollars. And what we're finding out is that in no way, shape, or form does it outweigh all these negative consequences that the data center tries to bring and promise to bring, I should say. So I'd like to say I would like to extend the 6 months moratorium to explore all of these issues. And thank you for your time.
Thank you for your public comment and joining us today. Ryan, do we have anyone left?
No, we have no more hands raised.
Okay, I will go ahead and just offer to anyone else in the audience or online a last minute chance for public comment. Come on up. Can you spell your name and say your name for the record, please?
Yes, my name is Mac Gibb. That's MAKGUI. E as in Edward, B as in boy. Good afternoon, commissioners. I am here also to speak in support of the moratorium. Currently, we already have communities in our county that are experiencing the impacts of anthropogenic climate change. We have communities up in the mountains who are having to haul in water and are already experiencing accessibility issues. By bringing in a data center, we would, as other folks have mentioned, be putting additional strain on our infrastructure and would worsen these situations that are also potentially historically impacted through federal and state policy. I would ask that the Board of Commissioners extend the moratorium until our communities their needs can be met sufficiently and sustainably. And I would also ask that any further research into the moratorium would include not just a natural resource lens, but also a social and sociological lens as well. Thank you.
Thank you for your public comment and being here today. Okay, last call for public comment. Okay, we'll go ahead and close public comment. We do appreciate everyone being here in person and online today. It's very important for an item of this interest, of this great interest in our community, that we allow folks. We really encourage public engagement and public comments. So we're really grateful for you being here today. I don't believe we have any questions, but I just wanted to see is any questions for staff from our commissioners, or do you want to just move on to deliberations? Commissioner Kafalos.
Don't have questions. I do want to move into responding to a little bit to what we heard, deliberations, yes.
Well, that's what I was thinking. We could respond to some of that in deliberations if you're ready to do that. I offered that.
But Commissioner Stevens.
Did you have a question, Commissioner Stevens? I didn't see your hand. I'm sorry.
No, that's all right. So my question for staff is just a couple questions so we can bring some clarity. So first of all, we can only enact a 6-month moratorium. Is that correct?
That is correct, but that moratorium can be extended once it expires.
So just so folks understand, it could be extended, and that would be additional time that we would need to, do our research, look at best practices around the country of how to, because we can put in regulations that say if you can't meet these criteria, then, you can't have a license to operate. So is that correct to our county attorney? I mean, if you can't meet these standards around, water usage or electricity or we're in touch with our utility providers and they're like, the grid can't handle it, or we'd have to increase grid capacity by so much, and that would increase, costs for our consumers. We wouldn't, we could then not allow that, right?
Sure. I think what you're asking, and I'll answer the best I can. If I don't capture it, let me know. So the statute that the board is using to enact this moratorium, it's under 3028-121. That is the statute that allows county commissioners to adopt temporary moratoriums. It's titled temporary regulations, and the intent of this statute is to give the board and staff time to develop regulations. So it really is intended not as like a moratorium for us to do nothing during these 6 months period. It is a research time, and just like Jenny stated, it can be extended in 6 month increments, but the intent behind this particular regulation is to give the board time.
All right, so folks know we can't extend a moratorium indefinitely. Like, we have to have a reason to have a moratorium. We have to do work during the time of the moratorium and then come up with regulations. So thank you I think that's really an important thing for people to understand. Next, are we envisioning, so was a great comment today, and so are we envisioning any kind of process where besides, let's say we did the work we need to do, we feel like we have the regulations we want. Are we going to have any kind of public opportunity for people to engage? Because it seems like there's a lot of interest in this issue. So like sometimes we've had an open house on an issue or something like that, where we maybe tease out what the regulations might be and kind of get people's input. Are we envisioning any kind of process like that?
So we haven't concluded on exactly what the process will look like. I do want to note, no matter where we end up, it's likely going to be amending our land use code, and that is always a public hearing process like we're going through right now, and so there'll always be an opportunity to comment on that. But yes, based on the feedback we're hearing, it would not surprise me if we planned some additional public outreach once we get our research completed.
Yeah, I would definitely like to see that, and whatever that might look like. Like I said, I think an open house kind of, where we have dots or, things that people can come in, and because there is a lot of interest in this, and there's also a lot of expertise, honestly, that we've heard from. And so I think having that sort of expertise in the community, or whether it's people from the university or people who have engineering degrees, I mean, these are the exact people. I want to hear from everyone, but I mean, it's great to hear from people who really understand the implications of something like this, I think, in these conversations. So I think those are my only questions before we go into deliberation, but thank you.
Well, I'll build off of Commissioner Stevens' question. I know that since we've been on the board since we were elected, and Commissioner Stevens and I were elected in 2020, we have had several opportunities when we changed the land use code, where we had oil and gas regulations, which we chose to go above what the state mandated minimum was. We also did that for short-term rental regulations. And we also, when our water plan, we had lots of open houses. So our track record, or our history of community engagement is been pretty robust. And usually we have opportunities online for people to put in comments, and also have some in-person town halls or open houses for folks to come in and ask questions. So if someone with so my question is, because I know we've done this before and we've all participated, and the public's been very helpful to provide some perspectives or questions maybe we hadn't thought of. So if there's folks with, and I know you haven't developed it, but there will be an opportunity, I'm assuming, either online or through these open houses, for someone with subject matter expertise in these areas to provide maybe some information or data for staff to consider.
Yes, absolutely. We're starting with the capstone research with our graduate student, and then once that's completed, I think we'll roll out the next level of engagement, and so that we keep our website up to date. So just take a look at planning.gov or larimer.gov/planning, and you'll find next steps there.
And can I ask you to clarify and expand like I had before? Because I think a lot of folks might have had a misconception that maybe we were considering something by putting this moratorium on, but really, I think we felt and staff felt that because we started having interest that we didn't really have much in place in our land use code, and we needed to have this critical pause to be able to allow staff and all of us to catch up with this ever-changing technology and things coming into our communities. We've seen it a lot at the state legislature with legislation, and so I just want to clarify, this is what we needed to do, the resolution and then this hearing, and then consideration of extension if needed, if we need more time. That was really for us to really create this critical pause, is my question, correct?
That is correct. If an application were to have been submitted prior to this, we would have very few regulations to look at it under, and so this allows us to be very thoughtful in how we pursue this land use potentially moving forward.
I appreciate you clarifying that for those in the audience and in the public, just to understand that we are just trying to make sure we have the right protections and information in place as we move on, because it gets very technical, and we probably could. I'm glad to hear we have some graduate students helping us. So, with that, we'll move on to deliberations unless there's more questions. Commissioner Kafalis, you have a question?
I was going to offer it in my closing comments, but I'll ask it as a question. And on the matter of keeping the community informed about the process, could they sign up through our public engagement tool and put in information about data centers, and then they would receive emails automatically when there is an event they could attend?
So we haven't created that portal for this specific moratorium, but absolutely for the process moving forward, we will have a public input component to that.
So I'd like to suggest that we do that.
Yes, and okay. Ryan, who does that, is telling me yes.
Okay, great. And that's something, if you go to the county website, I went there, there's I think it's called Gateway Engagement.
It's engage.larimer.org. Org?
And it's a really user-friendly website, and you can sign in, and once we get this particular portal set up, that might be a way to stay informed. So I wanted to put that out there. May I make my closing comments now?
Yes, Commissioner Kafalis, I was going to start with Commissioner Stevens, but I'll let you go.
Sure. Heck.
Go ahead and go first, Commissioner Kafalis.
We could arm wrestle, perhaps. No, it's... So first of all, goes without saying, thank you all very much for being here. It's important. I think you understand the rationale behind what we did a couple of weeks ago and what we are proposing to do this evening. I did want to mention that, so thank you all for being here. It's really important to help inform our decision making. I did want to mention, and if you're not already aware, one of the bills in the legislature, House Bill 1030, is actually up in committee hearing tomorrow. So you may want to take a look at that. And I know groups, you may want to take a look at that and determine whether or not you want to testify. You can do that through the General Assembly website remotely, or perhaps go down to that place in Denver. So I wanted to point that out, and I forgot what else I was going to say. The public engagement tool, I think, could be very helpful. I guess it's best to. It's getting late. I'll stop there. Thank you all very much.
Commissioner Stevens.
Yeah, so I support the moratorium, to extend the moratorium for 6 more months so we can get more information and really look at best practices and see how we can best put in regulations. I really like a lot of the suggestions we heard today, concerns about water, concerns about energy, concerns about noise pollution. And I do love the idea of looking at this through a social lens. So thank you, Mac, for that, bringing that one up. I think this is really important. You know, if we think about our utilities costs going up and becoming unaffordable, I mean, I think that's some of that affordability is some of that social lens that we need to look at. So, all really great suggestions. Really thank everybody for coming out today. We heard people were interested, and we actually get pretty excited when we get good public comment, because we don't know, not every topic that we deal with is, as you maybe heard on the last item, it generates a lot of interest. And so this is really good, especially to hear from young people in our community. I think that that's wonderful. People with some expertise, people who really understand these issues and the implications that come with these data centers. And thank you to staff really for, sort of anticipating this, being like, we need to put a pause and we need to figure this out before we move forward, because I think that people are sort of thinking that they create more jobs than they really do, or that they like I said, the research is yet to be done, so no decisions yet, but certainly a lot of things to think about in this space, and that really requires a pause in our thinking of how to move forward, and how to permit these if we want these in our community. So anyway, I'm supporting the moratorium, and really appreciate the engagement. Please stay connected, and because it sounds like we will have more engagement opportunities. And I will just say, if you didn't write down any of those, engagement.com/blah blah blah, just feel free to reach out to, honestly, any of us. We're happy to point you in the right direction, or hear what you have to say on this topic. So don't let your lack of hearing or writing down those things, because you could write them down in a notebook and then you set this notebook aside and you don't remember. So just stay engaged and let us know what you're thinking about this issue as we move forward. So that's all for me. Thank you.
Thank you, colleagues. Thank you all for being here today. It's really important to hear from our public, because I do think there is a lot of social and environmental impacts in a lot of ways that we need to consider. I'm just going to speak for myself. I have been aware and concerned about AI and data centers since about 2022, when I was asked to attend a conference in DC, but even before then, and we were discussing, and it was the biggest topic between the senators and the presenters and the departments about AI and that and the growth of this and how it's going to be changing and a lot of things. And it's moved rapidly, and we were warned, you got to get ahead of this. And we did come up with a policy on AI earlier last year, where we just didn't have one in place, but we needed to have one at least for how we use it and how we have guardrails and some of the concerns. So, this has been a conversation I have been having and listening in as we were members of Colorado Counties and Colorado Communities for Climate Action Group, Colorado Counties Commissioners and Counties Acting Together, and CCI, as we've been getting presentations and being involved in dialogue around this, because even last year during the special session, there was 2 data center bills or AI bills that were introduced during the special session. So it's something that we have been listening to and hearing, and we are watching around the region as well as the state and, kind of the Western United States. And so I think it's something that we knew was something we needed to address. We have a lot of land use issues, and so we had to find the space also for staff to be able to have the time to deal with this. And I think I appreciate the comments, and I hope that you all stay engaged, not only with with our process, which I can say our staff did, I believe, amazing job for engaging the public and bringing public input. As you saw, there's some of these tools that we've done, so it's easier and to measure your comments, and you're always welcome to email us, but we'll probably, read it, but forward it on to staff to be part of the public record. We hear you, we understand the concerns, and that is why we move for the quicker resolution in this 6 months, just so we have that critical pause. I call it kind of creating a bubble, so that we can work inside that bubble to work on what kind of land use things would we need to have, just like 1041 powers enacted by us for the state. I think we have one of the more robust 1041 processes in the state as a county, and I think those are really important because we consider a lot of items and factors. So I do look forward to this conversation, and I hope that you will all be engaged not only locally but at a state and federal level as well as we explore this. And I do think it is rapidly moving and changing, and we're trying to, be proactive and see what we need to do to consider this. I'm fully aware of the drought conditions and changing wildfire risks that is increasing along with the mountain pine beetle outbreak, which is also, I think, a direct, we know it's also a direct consequence of climate change that also is endangering our watersheds and impacting our normal water cycle. So I think those are all things to consider when we talk about adequate water and growth in this community and what that means. So I don't know what this looks like, but we're developing it, and it gives us this critical time to really give staff the ability to really look at this and in depth. And I don't know if we'll need another one, but it is certainly a big topic to tackle. And I know I'm really glad the public is aware and engaged and asking the appropriate questions and raising the appropriate concerns. And I hope that you'll stay along with us in the process and be along and help provide your feedback to the staff and for the process. Encourage your neighbors to do as well, because we really want to hear from all of you. And I appreciate you being here in person today and giving us a chance to kind of share, kind of our process and why we're doing this today. It's important for the public to understand how your elected officials the process and the hearing and how we do this and how it's a step-by-step process that we have to do, and that we are looking to consider all things, and we are here to work on behalf of our residents, and I do consider regulations like protections. We have to think about not only the immediate but also the long-term impacts. So I really want to thank you all and staff as well. And I know our county attorney's office, along with Rebecca Everett, our community development director, who were very instrumental with trying to get us the information and helping us move so we can get this in place. And I know this adds to the work plan, but I think this is a really critical area of importance for us to understand and really get ahead of it. So with that, I appreciate the opportunity to share these comments, because I want to make sure people understood, we were putting this critical pause in so we can work and find out what we need to do. So with that, we don't have the motion, but I'd like to have Commissioner Stevens make that motion, and then we'll take our vote. Thank you, Commissioner Stevens.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move that the Board of County Commissioners approve the resolution to extend the temporary moratorium on data center facilities until August 25th, 2026.
Thank you, Commissioner Stevens, for that motion. I don't think there's further discussion, but I think we can just go ahead and move on. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Passes 3-0. For our 3:00 land use hearing, we have no other items on our agenda, and so at 5:26 we are adjourned. Thank you.